First contact at Proxima Station. The gleaming spires of Proxima Research Station pierced the eternal night of deep space, its crystalline structures reflecting the distant light of Alpha Centauri. Dr. Arya Hassan pressed her hand against the viewport of the approaching shuttle, watching as the massive structure grew larger. After 15 years of preparation, she was about to become the first human scientist accepted into the Galactic Science Coalition's Advanced Research Program. The station's design itself spoke volumes about the civilizations that had built it. Massive energy collectors stretched out like translucent wings, gathering radiation from nearby stars. Quantum communication arrays pulsed with colors humans had no words for, broadcasting discoveries across light years. It was beautiful, alien, and intimidating. Much like the beings she would soon call colleagues. Approaching final docking sequence, announced the shuttle's eye. Please prepare for arrival procedures. Arya gathered her thoughts along with her minimal belongings. The station's gravity would be set to universal standard, slightly lighter than Earth's but heavier than what most spacefaring species preferred. Just one of countless compromises she would need to navigate. The docking procedure was seamless, a testament to technologies far beyond human achievement. As the airlock cycled, Arya straightened her uniform and checked the universal translator at her throat. First impressions would be crucial. The reception committee waiting for her consisted of 3 beings. A towering selenarian whose crystalline body structure caught and refracted light in mesmerizing patterns. A voidborn whose dark matter composition made them appear as a shifting shadow with glowing points of light for eyes. And between them, a Mentari, a species of energy beings who maintain solid form through advanced containment suits. Welcome to Proxima Station, Dr. Hassan. The Selenarian's thoughts translated directly into her mind. I am Chief Researcher Lyrics. These are my associates, Void Speaker Nyx and Energy Weaver Helios. Thank you for accepting my application, Arya replied, careful to maintain eye contact with each being in turn. I look forward to contributing to the Coalition's research. Yes, contributing. Void Speaker Nyx's words carried an unmistakable tone of skepticism. We have reviewed your species' scientific achievements. They are quaint. Arya had expected this reaction. Humanity was young compared to these civilizations, their technological advancement measured in mere centuries rather than millennia. Every species begins somewhere, she replied diplomatically. We have much to learn, but also unique perspectives to offer. Unique is one word for it. Energy Weaver Helios commented, their containment suit pulsing with patterns that suggested amusement. Your species still relies on chemical synapses for cognitive processing. How do you manage complex calculations? We adapt, Arya said simply. And sometimes, limitations breed innovation. The 3 alien scientists exchanged looks, or whatever passed for looks among their species. Chief Researcher Lyrics's crystalline form chimed softly, as sound Arya's translator didn't bother to interpret. Your laboratory space has been allocated in Section 7 Delta, Lyrics announced. You will be working on analyzing quantum entanglement patterns in biological systems. Do try not to damage any of the equipment. It's irreplaceable by your world standards. As they led her through the station's winding corridors, Arya observed everything with careful attention. The architecture itself was organic, responding to the movements of passing beings. Doors opened before anyone reached them. Atmospheric conditions adjusted automatically for different species requirements, and information flowed through crystalline conduits embedded in the walls. Her lab, when they reached it, was smaller than she'd expected but equipped with technology she'd only dreamed of. A quantum microscope capable of observing particles across dimensional boundaries. A neural interface system that could process data faster than any human computer. And most impressively, a biological containment field that could suspend living specimens in a state of temporal stasis. The equipment has been calibrated for simplified use, Void Speaker Nyx explained, managing to make it sound like an insult. Though we doubt you'll achieve any meaningful results. Aria ran her hand along the smooth surface of the quantum microscope. "Thank you for the consideration. I'll do my best to exceed your expectations." "That would not be difficult," Energy Weaver Helios remarked, "given that they are effectively zero." After they left, Aria allowed herself a moment to feel the full weight of what she faced. The skepticism, the dismissal, the barely concealed disdain. It was all expected, but experiencing it firsthand was different. She thought of all the humans who had fought to reach this point, the pioneers, the dreamers, the ones who had looked up at the stars and refused to accept limitations. She began unpacking her equipment, including one item that had raised eyebrows during her application process, a vintage notebook and pen. Sometimes the oldest technologies were the most reliable, especially when working with quantum systems that could interfere with digital devices. As she made her first notes, a subtle vibration ran through the station. To anyone else, it might have seemed like normal operations, but Aria's trained senses noticed something off about the frequency. She paused, pen hovering above paper, and wondered if her alien colleagues would be open to hearing about her concerns. They had made their opinions clear. Humans were primitive, barely worth acknowledging. But as she looked around at the advanced technology surrounding her, Aria smiled. She hadn't come here to prove humans were equal to these ancient species. She had come to show them that being different didn't mean being lesser, and that sometimes the greatest breakthroughs come from unexpected places. The vibration came again, stronger this time. In the margins of her notebook, Aria began calculating frequencies, drawing on years of experience with Earth's seismic patterns. Something was wrong with Proxima Station, whether her new colleagues wanted to admit it or not. And perhaps this would be her first opportunity to show them exactly what human intuition could bring to their advanced science. The quantum crisis. The warning signs became impossible to ignore 3 days after Aria's arrival. The vibration she had noticed grew more frequent, sending subtle tremors through Proxima Station's crystalline structure. She stood in her laboratory, watching as ripples appeared in a sample container that should have been completely stable. A sudden surge of energy caused the quantum microscope to flicker, its readings jumping erratically. Aria quickly noted the patterns in her notebook, her mind racing through possible explanations. The station's quantum core, the massive power source that kept everything running, operated on principles she barely understood, but she recognized the signs of systemic instability. "Attention all researchers." Chief Researcher Lyrix's thoughts echoed through the station's telepathic communication network. "Report to the central chamber immediately." When Aria arrived, she found the chamber in chaos, or at least what passed for chaos among beings of supreme technological advancement. The Selenarians' crystalline forms vibrated with discordant frequencies, while the Voidborn's shadowy shapes rippled with unusual patterns. The Mentari's containment suits pulsed with rapid color changes that suggested extreme agitation. "The quantum core is experiencing unprecedented fluctuations," Lyrix announced, their crystalline form projecting holographic data streams into the chamber center. "Our standard stabilization protocols have failed." "Impossible," Energy Weaver Helios declared, their containment suit flaring bright. "The core's design has been stable for millennia. These readings must be incorrect." Aria studied the holographic data, translating the alien measurements into terms she could understand. The patterns were familiar somehow, reminding her of something she'd seen in her research on Earth. But before she could follow that thought, Void Speaker Nyx interrupted. "The human should leave," they stated. "This is far beyond their comprehension level. We need to focus on real solutions." Aria stood her ground. "With respect, I've been monitoring these disturbances since my arrival. The pattern isn't random. It's escalating in a specific sequence." The alien scientists turned to her with what she interpreted as surprise. Lyrix's crystalline form chimed in a way that suggested interest. "Explain." Drawing her notebook from her pocket, Aria approached the holographic display. "The vibrations follow a logarithmic progression that reminds me of quantum tunneling experiments we conducted on Earth. When particles begin to primitives playing with forces they don't understand. Nix interrupted. Your Earth experiments are irrelevant here. But Lyrics raised a crystalline appendage for silence. Continue, Dr. Vassan. The progression suggests that something is causing the core's quantum field to collapse in on itself, like a feedback loop. Each collapse generates more energy, which feeds back into the system, causing bigger collapses. She quickly sketched a diagram in her notebook, then held it up. The alien scientists stared at the paper with what might have been confusion or disdain. It was hard to tell with such diverse species. You use processed plant fiber to record data? Helios asked incredulously. Sometimes the simplest tools are the most reliable, Aria replied, especially when dealing with quantum interference that might affect digital systems. Before anyone could respond, a violent shudder ran through the station. The holographic displays flickered and died, plunging the chamber into darkness broken only by the natural light of the assembled beings. The core's containment field is failing, Lyrics announced, their crystalline form providing emergency lighting. At this rate, we have perhaps 6 hours before total collapse. What happens then? Aria asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. The released energy would tear the station apart, Helios explained, and the quantum breakdown could potentially create a localized space-time rupture. Aria's mind raced through the implications. Not only would everyone on the station die, but the rupture could threaten nearby star systems, including Earth's closest stellar neighbor, Alpha Centauri. We must begin evacuation procedures, Nix declared. The station is lost. Wait, Aria said, an idea forming as she looked at her diagram. What if we're thinking about this wrong? Instead of fighting the collapse, what if we guide it? The alien scientists turned to her again, their attention sharp and focused. Even Nix's shadowy form seemed to concentrate on her words. On Earth, we studied quantum tunneling in biological systems, specifically how certain bacteria use it for energy production. They don't try to prevent quantum effects. They channel them through specific pathways. This is not a bacterial system, Helios objected. This is the most advanced power source in known space. But the principles might be the same, Aria insisted. Energy is energy, whether it's powering a bacterium or a space station. If we could modify the containment field to create directed channels for the quantum collapse. She trailed off as she noticed the aliens exchanging what seemed to be a private communication. Finally, Lyrics spoke aloud. Your suggestion is unorthodox, they said. But our conventional solutions have failed. Time is short, and we have little to lose. Aria nodded, already sketching out more detailed diagrams. I'll need access to the core's control systems and help understanding how to interface with them. You'll have it, Lyrics decided, overriding Nick's obvious objection. But be warned, if you're wrong, accelerating the collapse could make the rupture even worse. I understand, Aria replied, her voice steady despite the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Let's get to work. As they rushed toward the quantum core chamber, Aria clutched her notebook tight. She was about to attempt something never before tried with technology she barely understood, based on a theory drawn from Earth's simplest life forms. The fate of the station, and perhaps much more, would depend on whether she could prove that sometimes the most primitive solutions were also the most profound. Hidden strengths. The quantum core chamber was unlike anything Aria had ever seen. A massive sphere of pure energy hung suspended in the center, its surface rippling with colors the human eyes were never meant to process. Surrounding it were crystalline control interfaces that responded to thought and touch, their surfaces crawling with complex mathematical symbols that shifted and evolved in real time. We have 4 hours remaining, Lyrics announced, their crystalline form interfacing directly with the control systems. The containment field is already at critical stress levels. Aria worked quickly, transferring her diagrams from paper to the quantum interfaces with Helios's help. The Energy Weaver's containment suit pulsed with skepticism, but they were precise in their translations of her work. Your proposed channels, Helios observed, they follow organic patterns rather than geometric ones. This defies all established principles of quantum engineering. Life rarely follows perfect geometry, Arya replied, adjusting a calculation. It finds the path of least resistance, adapts to obstacles rather than trying to overcome them directly. Another violent tremor shook the station, stronger than any before. The quantum core's surface began to show visible distortions, areas where space itself seemed to fold and unfold. The collapse is accelerating, Nix reported, their shadowy form analyzing data streams. We have less time than estimated. Arya felt sweat beading on her forehead, the only visible sign of stress among the assembled beings. The others didn't perspire, didn't show physical manifestations of fear or doubt. But she refused to let her human characteristics be seen as weaknesses. Look here, she said, pointing to a particular pattern in the core's fluctuations. The energy isn't just building up randomly. It's following patterns similar to fluid dynamics, if we treat it like a flow rather than a contained force. Her fingers flew across the interface, making adjustments based on intuition as much as calculation. Years of studying Earth's natural systems, everything from river deltas to neural networks, had taught her that sometimes the most efficient solutions weren't the most obvious ones. Impossible, Nix declared, observing her work. You're suggesting we treat quantum energy like water. This is absurd. Is it? Arya challenged, not looking up from her calculations. Your own species exists as a quantum state between matter and void. You don't fight that duality. You embrace it. That's what we need to do here. The statement gave Nix pause, their shadowy form flickering in what might have been surprise. Lyrix's crystalline surface chimed in a frequency that suggested deep thought. The human's approach is unorthodox, Lyrix admitted, but there is a certain elegance to it. The mathematics, while primitive, show an understanding of natural flow patterns that we might have overlooked. As they spoke, Arya continued her work, adding layers to her solution. She drew from every piece of knowledge she had: fluid dynamics, quantum mechanics, even the way trees grew to distribute resources through their branches. Nature had spent billions of years solving optimization problems. Why not learn from those solutions? Energy Weaver, she called to Helios, can you modify the containment field to create these channel patterns? Helios' containment suit pulsed with conflicting colors. It goes against all standard protocols. The risk. The risk of doing nothing is certain destruction, Arya interrupted. Sometimes survival means breaking protocols. Another violent tremor rocked the station. Warning signals flashed across every interface, and the quantum core's surface began to show signs of imminent collapse. 3 hours remaining. Lyrix updated. We must decide now. Arya stood firm, her hand steady as she made the final adjustments to her calculations. Nature doesn't waste energy fighting itself. It adapts, flows, finds new paths. That's not primitive. It's profound. And right now, it might be our only chance. The alien scientists exchanged looks, having one of their silent communications. Finally, Lyrix spoke for them all. Begin the modifications, they ordered. Energy Weaver Helios, implement Dr. Hassan's channel design. Void Speaker Nix, monitor the quantum fields for signs of cascade failure. As they rushed to their tasks, Arya felt the weight of countless lives resting on her theory. She thought of Earth, of all the natural wonders that had inspired her solution. The way water carved canyons, the way lightning followed paths of least resistance, the way life itself always found a way to continue. She looked up at the swirling quantum core, its chaotic surface reflecting humanity's greatest strength, the ability to see patterns in chaos, to find solutions in unlikely places, and to adapt when rigid systems failed. Ready to implement, Helios announced, their containment suit glowing with focused energy. Arya took a deep breath, her hand hovering over the final control interface. Everything she had learned, everything humans had learned from studying Earth's systems, had led to this moment. Begin the sequence, she ordered, her voice steady despite the tremors that threatened to tear the station apart. As the new containment patterns began to form, she silently hoped that the wisdom of nature would prove stronger than the cold perfection of advanced technology. The breaking point. The quantum core pulsed with blinding intensity as Aria's modified containment field took effect. The chaotic energy that had threatened to tear the station apart began to flow through the new channels, following paths inspired by river deltas and neural networks. For a moment, it seemed to be working. Then everything went wrong. Critical failure in sectors 7 through 12, Nix announced, their shadowy form rippling with alarm. The energy flow is too intense. The channels are beginning to break down. Aria's heart raced as she watched the carefully crafted pathways start to collapse. The quantum energy was more volatile than she had anticipated, resisting the natural patterns she had tried to impose. "We need to abort," Helios declared, their containment suit flashing warning colors. The station's structural integrity cannot withstand this level of quantum displacement. But Aria saw something in the collapse pattern that caught her attention. The energy wasn't just destroying the channels, it was creating new ones, following paths she hadn't predicted but that somehow looked familiar. "Wait," she called out, grabbing her notebook and sketching frantically. "Look at how it's moving. It's not just random destruction, it's self-organizing." "Impossible," Lyric stated, their crystalline form vibrating with concern. "Quantum energy cannot self-organize without a controlling intelligence." Unless, Aria's mind raced through possibilities. Unless we're not seeing the whole picture. On Earth, we studied systems that appeared chaotic, but actually followed deep underlying patterns. Like how slime molds can find optimal paths through mazes, or how lightning branches create fractals. Another violent surge rocked the station, stronger than any before. Warning sirens blared throughout the facility, and emergency containment fields began failing one by one. 2 hours until complete structural failure, Nix reported. "We must evacuate now." But Aria couldn't let go of what she was seeing. The failing channels weren't just collapsing. They were evolving, creating new patterns that seemed to dance on the edge of order and chaos. "The core isn't fighting us," she realized, excitement cutting through her fear. "It's trying to show us something. These patterns, they're like quantum fingerprints." "Explain," Lyrics demanded, their tone sharp with urgency. Aria's hands flew across the control interface as she spoke. "Every system has its natural frequency, its preferred state of being. We've been trying to force the quantum energy into our patterns, but what if instead we let it show us its own?" "You suggest we give control to an unstable quantum field?" Helios asked incredulously. "That would be suicide." "Not control, collaboration." Aria pulled up the station's original design specifications. "Look at the station's structure itself. The crystalline matrices, the organic curves. Your ancestors built this place to work with natural forces, not against them." She began making rapid adjustments to the containment field, not trying to direct the energy flow anymore, but instead creating conditions where it could find its own balance. It was like steering into a skid, counterintuitive, but sometimes the only way to regain control. "Dr. Hassan," Lyrics warned, "if you're wrong about this, then we're no worse off than we are now," she finished. "Sometimes you have to trust in the wisdom of natural systems, even when you don't fully understand them." The quantum core's surface began to shift, its colors swirling in new patterns. The violent tremors continued, but they were changing, becoming more rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. "Energy levels are still critical," Nix reported, "but the pattern is stabilizing. This defies all known quantum mechanics." Aria watched intently as the energy found its own paths, creating structures more complex and beautiful than anything she could have designed. It was like watching the growth of a crystal or the development of a nervous system, organic, unpredictable, but following its own perfect logic. "The station's structural integrity is at 15%, Helios announced, their containment suit pulsing with anxiety. If this fails, it won't, Aria interrupted, though her voice shook slightly. Look at the harmonics. The energy isn't fighting anymore. It's dancing. Indeed, the quantum core had begun to pulse with a strange, mesmerizing rhythm. The new patterns it created seemed to resonate with the station's crystalline structure, strengthening rather than destroying it. Remarkable. Lyrics breathed, their crystalline form reflecting the core's shifting lights. The quantum field is actually repairing the damage it caused. But how? By finding its natural state, Aria explained, watching in wonder as the station's systems began to stabilize. Sometimes the most powerful force isn't control, it's letting go enough to find the right balance. As the crisis point passed and the quantum core settled into its new configuration, Aria felt the weight of the past few hours crash down on her. She had taken an enormous risk, betting everything on principles derived from studying Earth's simplest systems. And somehow, impossibly, it had worked. But looking at the transformed core, she realized this wasn't just a victory for human ingenuity. It was a lesson in humility, a reminder that sometimes the greatest discoveries came not from imposing order, but from learning to understand and work with the natural order that already existed. Beyond species, in the days following the quantum core crisis, Proxima Station hummed with a new kind of energy. The core, now stabilized in its evolved state, operated at efficiency levels that exceeded all previous measurements. But the most remarkable changes weren't in the station's systems, they were in its inhabitants. Aria found herself the center of intense scientific interest. The same alien researchers who had dismissed her as primitive now sought her insights, particularly about Earth's natural systems and how they might apply to advanced technologies. Your solution was unconventional, Lyrics admitted during a formal review session. Their crystalline form resonated with frequencies that the translator interpreted as respectful acknowledgement. But it has forced us to reconsider many of our fundamental assumptions. The review chamber was packed with beings from across the station. Even species that normally kept to themselves had emerged to participate in the discussion. Aria stood before them, her notebook in hand, feeling the weight of this moment. The quantum core crisis taught us something vital, she began. Advanced technology doesn't always mean complex solutions. Sometimes the most sophisticated systems follow the simplest natural laws. But how did you know it would work? A void-born researcher asked, their shadowy form rippling with curiosity. The risks were astronomical. Aria smiled. I didn't know. Not with certainty. Humans rarely have that luxury. We observe, we theorize, we take calculated risks. Our entire history is built on learning from natural systems and being willing to adapt when our theories fail. Energy weaver Helios, who had helped implement her solution, floated forward. Their containment suit pulsed with colors that suggested deep contemplation. We have spent millennia perfecting our understanding of quantum mechanics, yet a human using primitive tools saw patterns we missed. How is this possible? Perhaps, Aria suggested, it's because humans are still close to our evolutionary roots. We haven't yet engineered away our connection to natural systems. What you see as primitive might actually be our greatest strength. The chamber filled with the subtle sounds of multiple species communicating in their native forms, crystalline chimes, quantum fluctuations, energy pulses. Finally, void speaker Nyx emerged from the shadows. When you first arrived, they said, we saw only your technological limitations. We failed to recognize that innovation doesn't always require advanced tools. Sometimes it requires perspective. Aria opened her notebook, displaying the simple diagrams that had helped save the station. Earth's history is full of examples where observing nature led to breakthrough innovations. The way birds fly taught us about aerodynamics. Plant structures inspired our architecture. Even our neural networks are modeled on our own brains. And now, Lyrics added, Earth's river patterns and biological systems have revolutionized our understanding of quantum energy management. The Coalition's other research stations are already implementing variations of your solution. The announcement sent a wave of excitement through the chamber. Aria felt a surge of pride, not just for herself, but for humanity as a whole. They had earned their place among the stars not by matching alien technology, but by offering something unique. I propose, lyrics continued, their crystalline form glowing brightly, that we establish a new research division focused on studying the application of natural patterns to advanced technologies, and I nominate Dr. Hassan to lead it. The proposal was met with unanimous agreement, even from those who had been most skeptical of human capabilities. As the session concluded, Aria found herself surrounded by alien scientists eager to share ideas and learn from her approach. Later, standing at the same viewport where she had first arrived, Aria watched the distant stars. The station felt different now, not just a hub of advanced technology, but a place where different species could truly learn from each other. Remarkable view, isn't it? Helios asked, joining her at the window. Their containment suit glowed softly in the darkness of space. It reminds me of something we say on Earth, Aria replied. The more we learn about the universe, the more we realize how much we still have to discover. Your species has much to teach us, Helios acknowledged. Not despite your youth, but because of it. You see possibilities where we see only established facts. Aria touched her notebook, thinking of all the observations and sketches it contained. And you have much to teach us. Perhaps that's the greatest discovery we've made here. That true progress comes not from one species advancing alone, but from all species learning from each other.